Welcome to Real Smart, the real estate podcast you've been waiting for. I'm Spencer Kallick, a real estate and land use attorney at Allen Matkins. On this show, I sit down with some of the most dynamic and accomplished voices in real estate to explore trends shaping the industry and uncover what truly sets great leaders apart. Hey listeners, today's guest is Jennifer Hanlon, Vice President of Real Estate and Development at VEG ER for Pets, one of the fastest growing and most innovative veterinary care companies in the country. At VEG, Jennifer leads the company's real estate strategy as it rapidly expands across the United States in support of VEG's mission to revolutionize emergency veterinary care. With a background in retail, healthcare, and growth-focused real estate, Jennifer brings a fresh perspective on how real estate can support brand, culture, and care. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Spencer. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. This is a very special podcast because we're obviously here in New York where you are based. We're taking the show on the road a bit for those real smart listeners out there. But this is really exciting for me because you have a really unique real estate story. Most people are kind of like, wait a second, why are we talking about veterinary care? What does that have to do with real estate? So help us out here. What is VEG?
Yeah, so VEG ER for Pets, we also go by VEG. As the name entails, we're a nationwide group of emergency and urgent care hospitals for pets. We currently have 115 locations across 30 states, including DC. Something that sets us apart as an emergency and urgent care provider is that we're actually an open concept animal hospital. So most of our locations don't even have waiting rooms. You come in and you go directly to the back and you get to stay with your pet for every step of their treatment. If they're getting blood taken, you can hold them. If they're getting surgery, you can watch. It's a super customer focused way of providing emergency care. Probably the only company in the world that does it like that, which is super exciting. And we are very happy to be scaling that across the US and Canada now.
Amazing. And how did this kind of come to be? I mean, I go to my normal vet, although I am a VEG customer as well, unfortunately, but in a good way. But yeah, how did this kind of idea come to be and how did you come to VEG?
Yeah, so I can give you some background on VEG as a company. Some people listening, if you're familiar with the concept, might know us as Veterinary Emergency Group. We rebranded a few months ago to VEG ER for Pets, but we still go by VEG.
I gotta get the lingo down again. I just think about it as VEG, but okay, VEG ER for Pets.
But we still go by VEG.
Okay.
But when you say just VEG, a lot of people are like, are you a vegetable business? So I always have to add the modifier, exactly. ER for Pets. So a little bit of background on the company itself. So we were founded in 2014 by Dr. David Bessler, who's an emergency veterinarian by trade. He actually purchased the first VEG location in White Plains, New York, which is where we're headquartered. He opened the second VEG location in 2016. I came on board in 2018 when we had about 4 or 5 locations and have been there ever since. I've been there for almost 7 years now. How the concept came to be is Dr. Bessler sat down one day and said, this is not how emergency medicine should be. If you take your kid to the pediatrician or you take your kid, God forbid, to the ER, they would never take your child from you and say, hey, we're going to bring them to the back and we'll let you know how it goes. But that's how a lot of emergency and urgent care hospitals function right now. So he set out to kind of break that mold and that's what we've been doing ever since.
Such a unique idea, such a simple idea, but also pretty revolutionary. And you joined the company, you said only 4, and now there's 114. 115. Oh my gosh. How does that happen? I mean, that's a tremendous amount of growth. You're a small team. What does that look like as you're trying to scale, frankly, a huge franchise across the United States?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you some background on like where I was and what I was doing before
VEG.
VEG.
I want to hear the Jenny Hanlon story. Let's do it.
So I graduated with my master's in 2016, and I knew I wanted to work in real estate, but I didn't know to what capacity. And I started actually as an assistant at a small commercial brokerage in White Plains. My original commercial real estate job is down the street from VEG's headquarters.
I love it.
Started as an assistant, I got licensed, and at the time they were doing kind of a bit of everything. It was retail, it was office, it was industrial. It was frankly things that I probably shouldn't have been touching. Like I was doing office leasing, which is its own ball game.
But that's what you learn,
it was
right?
like such a great experience. Yeah. And VEG was actually one of my clients. They had come to our team because they needed office space. Okay. And my boss at the time who ran the team said, hey, here's this little vet client, run with them. So that's where I met our co-founders. Funny enough, our co-founders are both named David and David. So I met the Davids and
a little bit complicated.
Yes, a little bit complicated, but worked with them for a few months. We never actually found any office space. And then as things tend to do, it kind of just dwindled out. But kind of kept in touch with David Gladstein, who's our president and co-founder. And a few months after that, he slid into my LinkedIn DMs, which this is what he's known for.
Slid into my LinkedIn. I never heard anybody say he slid
into my LinkedIn DMs.
Like, I've heard the Instagram DMs.
No, LinkedIn DM, okay. And was like, hey, we have an opening on our, at the time it was called business development team. We have an opening on our business development team. You should interview. And I was like, absolutely, this sounds great. And to be honest, I didn't really know anything about VEG. I didn't know to the extent of what this company was going to be, what it is today. No. But I said, yes, like absolutely, like I want to interview, and got the job.
Of course.
And I started, and the business development team was just David, actually. And then it was just me and David. And I had only been working in commercial real estate for 2 years at that point. So I could do all of the things you needed to do. I could run market demographics, and I could draft an LOI, and I could read a lease, but I had never worked for a company that was scaling at this extent. So I essentially learned a lot of what I know about commercial real estate, specifically in the veterinary industry, on the fly by just having no other choice. And I've been very lucky that VEG has given me a lot of autonomy. When COVID hit, they essentially handed over the entire real estate team and said, good luck, like keep signing leases, like we're still full steam ahead. And now I'm really fortunate. I get to lead a very small, very lean, but absolutely rock star team that over the last 7 years, I've got to hand pick. So there is a very deep level of trust and a shared purpose in what we do amongst the team because we are so small. And it's, I think, very unique to get to lead a team where we're working for a company that has such an impactful mission, which is helping people and their pets when they need it most. And it almost makes leading easy because I don't have to motivate anyone on what we're doing every day. And every time we open a new VEG in a community, like we are opening a service that truly gives back to the community and is there for people often in times of crisis. And that in and of itself is extremely motivating for me and for the team. So it kind of, I don't want to say runs itself. It takes a lot of effort, but because the team is so small and we're so close, it just kind of works. And I think we've been able to scale so quickly because of that closeness and because of that smallness. A lot of our teams at VEG tend to have quite a few people on them. Happy, and I will brag about the real estate team being the smallest team at VEG, and we've done that.
Mightiest.
The smallest, but potentially mightiest, and that's very purposeful for us. When you have such a small team, you can drive processes forward a lot quicker than if things get buried amongst a team of 5 or 10 deal makers.
I love it. So I'm going to digress for a second because I mean, I've known you now for a number of years, and I will never forget the first time I met you was on a Zoom call, and you look great right now. Normally, I know you're in like a red, VEG hoodie. And,
yes, our office is very casual.
Exactly. No, it's all good. You work with pets. And I was like, oh, I'm not so sure. Like, what's the story here? But from working with you, I think like after that first call, I remember walking in the hall of a colleague and being like, oh my God, this woman has her stuff together, is super impressive, and is making stuff happen. I mean, gosh, going from 4 locations to 115 locations, which I know, and there's many more. Like, you are a rock star in a world where, frankly, there are not a lot of women. There are not a lot of women in real estate. And so what gives you that drive? What makes that, it kind of drives that, besides just, I'm sure, having great parents and, being raised right, but like what makes that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things for VEG specifically that drew me to VEG and has inspired me in my career. I mean, I've spent the bulk of my career at VEG. One is the mission of helping people and their pets when they need it most. It's super deep and meaningful when we open those new locations, and getting to see that come to fruition is just very, very special. But 2, getting to work for a company that is really becoming the world's veterinary emergency provider. That's what our aim is that when you think veterinary emergency, you think VEG. Similar to how there was no World Coffee Company and now it's Starbucks. There was no World buying bulk things in boxes and now it's Costco. Like, that is what VEG is becoming, and getting to be a part of that in and of itself is super motivating. And getting to work for a company like VEG, which is really flipping the industry on its head. We're not only redefining emergency care for our customers and our patients, but just as importantly for our employees that we call veggies. We're very punny. Veggies really redefined what it means to work in emergency medicine, and we've created a sustainable, meaningful career path for so many talented people. And that is also very meaningful and drives me forward every day. A lot of what we do is I sit at the office when I'm not traveling, but getting to hear the stories of our frontliners, getting to go visit our hospitals, like that in and of itself is very driving for me.
So fascinating. So talk about how a new veg location happens. How do you decide where to go? How do you get it up and running? What's involved in that? Is there an ideal location for veg, a place that maybe is not as great? What does that look like?
Yeah, so veg site selection, market selection has really evolved over the last 7 years. So we have what we call our strategy and market and sub-market selection, and then we have our physical site selection, and I'll touch upon both. Our market selection really starts at the data analytical level. We have a lot of data, demographics, pet spending, consumer insights, market dynamics. We have a lot of information about who our customer is. I mean, we have 115 locations. Humble brag for the company. In the last 12 months, we treated 1 million pets.
Wow.
We saw 1 million cases, which is absolutely
1 million pets.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Absolutely insane. So we know a lot about who the customer is, where they're living, and what communities across the US and now Canada need veg. So a big bulk of our time is spent on that consumer analytics and data insights and understanding who else in the market is providing emergency care, where are they providing it, how are they providing it. But a huge bulk of our time is also spent in person, in that market, in that community, understanding what they really need from an ER provider. And then we need to balance those two things. The data and the analytics kind of give us direction, but the human side of it gives us the context that's super important in balancing those two insights. So, similar to every company, we have kind of a set metric of what we're looking for in terms of how many people are living somewhere, what is their income, etc. But then we marry that with really the boots on the ground, like how the market's trading, where are people going for emergency care? And it's really evolved over the years. When I started, we really didn't have any set way. Like we kind of thought we knew what made a good veg. And to this day, it was pretty right, actually. We kind of thought we knew that, but we also marry all of that with a lot of insights that we gain from working with our operations team and with our talent team, which is something I'm personally very proud of. I think at a lot of other large companies, I can say Veg is a large company now, even though we're technically a startup.
It's getting there, yeah.
It's a large company now. A lot of times the real estate team tends to be very siloed. We've kind of broken that mold at Veg. We work super closely with the operations, the talent, our regional leaders to understand what are their thoughts and feelings on specific markets, and then making sure that we're all aligned going into those markets. So understanding what's the potential case volume output there. Can we staff it? And when we open a new veg, we want to make sure that it's not just sustainable for the community, but it's sustainable for veg and the veggies that we're putting into it. And then we have the really fun side of the actual physical site selections, like what makes for a good veg. Yeah. And before I get into that, I'll kind of say how I view real estate, generally speaking, at the company. And I think a lot of us on the real estate and development team, which is not just real estate, we have our design and construction team that falls under my partner. We kind of view the real estate and development function as the gatekeeper to the veg experience. So before someone even walks in the door and talks to a doctor or talks to a nurse, getting to the veg and getting into it is their first experience with us and our brand and a visit to our hospital. So finding us, having good signage, being able to access the parking lot, being able to get from the parking lot into the building is all very critical. And that all comes down to site selection. If you are very frustrated getting to a veg, we're potentially making an already emotional time even worse. So we view ourselves as kind of the gatekeeper to what we call the veg experience. So before you even get into that door, what are all of the physical aspects about the site that affect your visit? Which starts with, can you find us?
Reducing the friction.
Yes.
Making it easy.
So reducing the friction, making it easy for you to access and get to a veg when you need us. We are a destination service provider. No one runs into Starbucks and says, oh, there's a veg next door, I'm gonna pop in. We don't sell any merchandise, we're only a service provider. But what's important is that people know where we are. So whether it's 3 p.m. or it's 3 a.m., they say, oh, every time I go to Costco, I always see that VEG ER for pets across the street. They know exactly how to get to us and exactly where they're going to park. So that is first and foremost, once we've understood that the market and the sub-market makes sense, is are people going to see us the maximum amount of eyeballs on us? I say that that's probably the top thing that we look for, but in certain markets, we can't always get that. So we have to kind of do the B+ or B- site, which is still great, and we're still helping that community, but it's not what we typically look for when we're looking for a site. So can you see us? Are we the right size? It's so interesting that our square footage has evolved so much since I've been here.
Bigger or smaller?
Bigger. More stuff, more people. When I first started, the average veg was like 2,500 or 3,000 square feet. The average veg is now 5,000. We have some veggies that are 6,000. So making sure that we are the right square footage. We don't want to go too big because then you lose the meaning behind the open concept. So if a doctor and a nurse have to shout across a 7,000 square foot space, that doesn't work for how we bring people into the hospital and provide emergency care to them. So it can't be too big. It also can't be too small because we don't want to crowd the team. It is an open concept hospital after all. And then we also can't fit all the essential revenue generating functions inside. And then you have all of the fun aspects of, is there enough parking? The typical veg, if it's freestanding, needs about 25 parking spots.
For customers or for employees?
So we have about 8 to 10 employees on per shift, and then the remainder are customers. So even though our hospitals perform amazingly and they're busy, the actual stat is about 2 to 3 customers per hour. So there's not a ton of people coming into a veg at any given time, which actually makes it a lot easier to tell our story when we're going into some of these larger power centers, or we're co-tenanting with someone like a Kava or a Starbucks, because people get this thought that, oh, there's going to be hundreds of pets like walking
dogs, being everywhere.
And it's not like that literally at all. So making sure that there's enough parking and you can access the parking. And sometimes you know, if there's a right only turn lane, we can't do anything about that. That's just how the community is. And we've come to learn that people just kind of find their way, and there's GPS. So.
Exactly. One of the things I'll never forget when we first started working on our first project together was in Santa Monica. And frankly, you all took a space that was kind of a decrepit diner.
We're really good at that.
Yeah. And I remember I got the call, like, oh, this is the location. I was like, that's a very bizarre place. It was like an institution in Santa Monica. And I was like, oh, they're going to have questions about all things we just talked about, whether it's, you know, dogs barking or kennels or, you know, the odors or what have you. But now it's turned into, like I said, unfortunately, I've had the pleasure of being there. Shout out to our buddy John Deshari for taking good care of us. Best vet in Santa Monica. And it's been phenomenal. And the community has embraced you. You're opening more all across California, all across the United States. So I'm kind of curious, though, is every place make sense for a veg, or are there places where maybe things haven't worked out that great? I mean, I know you only want to tell the good stories, but I'm curious, like, have there been setbacks? Have there been challenges in scaling so quickly at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we have over 100 locations. We have plans to open about 30-ish locations per year for the foreseeable future. So that's a lot of veggies.
A lot of veggies.
People always ask, like, how many veggies do you think you guys can have in the United States?
A bajillion.
Like, we quite literally think it can be 500, it can be 700. I mean, we have a top secret spreadsheet on our team that lists quite literally the next,
like, top secret because you've told everybody on the show.
That lists the next 300 potential veg locations. So the short answer is, we hope that every community that needs a veg across the US and Canada and eventually the world will get a veg. The reality is that we have to scale in a careful and meaningful way due to staffing. Something that I think you do know this from working with veg, but that the audience might not know is that staffing is extremely hard in the veterinary industry. And it gets even harder in the emergency veterinary part of the industry. Each location needs to be staffed with 8 doctors. We need a full team of veterinary nurses. And these are, doctors and qualified nurses. And unlike something like a, Starbucks or a Kava, we can't just hire anyone off the street to fill a position there. So there's a finite number of them at any given point in time in any given market. So we have to be really strategic with how we go about that growth and that scalability. And that's one of the reasons why my team works so closely with our talent team is making sure, when we scale that, we can get people to actually work within the veg. So I will give a humble brag that every single veg we have, I personally think is in a great market. There are definitely some where I'm like, ooh, maybe we would have done this differently had we known that then. But coulda, woulda, shoulda, we take those learnings and apply them forward. And what makes for a great veg is identifying a market that the community really does need that type of emergency care. And it's funny because you'll look at a lot of the markets we go into and people are like, oh, there's already so many emergency providers, which may or may not be true. And we really go into that community and like flip emergency care on its head though. We're open concept, so people just generally really like that they get to stay with their pet for every step of their treatment. And we also make really great partners to the general practices in every community. So about 40% of the cases that we see are referrals from other general practices. So creating those relationships, making sure we're getting back to them the case file, patient file at the end of their visit. So that is a very long-winded way of saying like, eventually, I think every place will have a veg, but we just have to be strategic about it. It's scaling, but not scaling too fast.
So this is a real estate podcast. So let's talk a little bit about the real estate itself. You don't own the veggies, right? You're leasing, correct?
Correct.
Do you own any of the veg locations?
We do. We own our original location in White Plains, New York.
But everything else is lease.
Everything is
lease. And are these 5, 10, 15-year leases?
Typically they are 10-year triple net leases.
Okay.
I will say that we are fairly flexible in the type of real estate we will take.
Any landlords out there listening, perhaps?
Yes, we are very flexible in the types of real estate we will take. We're pretty flexible in the types of deals we will do. We don't do ground leases. We have dabbled in the thought of purchasing real estate, so that's not off the table. But we typically will be super flexible in terms of we'll take TI, we won't take TI. Construction team, don't listen. You can white box it, you can give it as is. Like, we're a speed to market business. Like, we just want to get open in these markets and provide emergency care to the community. So for us, it's like, how do we get there the quickest? If it's, hey, you just give us the building and we do everything to it, great, like hand over the keys type of thing.
Speed to market. So how quickly from, say, a white box to first patient taken care of does it usually go? I know every city is a little different, and this is like the bane of your existence.
California.
Here we go. Exactly.
So I believe the stat is the quickest we've ever gotten a veg open from the time we identified the site to the time it opened was just about 365 days.
Wow.
That is very, very quick. The typical veg probably takes about 18 months to come to fruition. A big portion of that is we tend to have to go through some form of zoning. When we don't, it's great, and it can usually go a little bit quicker. But we
because you need a conditional use permit or something in the district where you're.
Yeah, we an SUP, a CUP. Like, we've had luck at getting variances. We found that in a lot of parts of the country, the zoning codes just haven't been updated in so long that veterinary use sometimes isn't even addressed within them. Like, there's just this black and white area, and we don't fall into either. And for codes that have addressed it or maybe haven't addressed it in a long time, it hasn't kept up with the fact that veterinary use, not just veg, but I guess pet use in general, has become way more commonplace going into big power centers, going into other types of retail centers within markets. So back in the day, it would be like, oh, we definitely don't want that veterinary user next to a coffee user because that doesn't make any sense. So it's working with cities to educate them on why we're a good tenant. And we've been very successful. I mean, I can only say that there's been maybe 1 or 2 times where our zoning has not been approved. And that's something that our team is really, really proud about. And
none that we've worked on, just to be clear.
No, I was just going to give you guys a shout out that we use Matkins exclusively in California. And you guys have been such a great partner to us. And a big piece of our growth has been having amazing partners like you guys that can scale with us. We're not always the easiest partner to work with.
You guys are great. But I think what's interesting is it's a really good story to tell, right? You could point out things like odor or the barking and things like that, which you all do have great plans in place to mitigate those issues. But when you get in front of city staff or you get in front of planning commission or city council, most of them have dogs, have cats, and they get it. Like, the light switches on and like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm normally waiting, 6 hours at, we're not going to bash any other veterinary companies, to have our use or to take care of our pet, but this is like I can literally walk off the street and get treated right away. That's a huge value add. And so usually the human aspect of it and the personal aspect of it is what I have seen personally firsthand really kind of grease the skids and make these projects move forward.
For sure. And it's so nice to work for at this point, well-established, well-known, highly regarded brand like VEG, because it makes telling that story so easy of, hey, we're bringing this pet and human-centered use to your community. And a lot of people have pets. Even if you don't have a pet, people are always swayed by the thought of a pet being sick or hurt. And it really is quite easy to tell the story of like why VEG is good for this market.
I'm curious about different markets. Is veterinary care the same in Los Angeles as it is in Manhattan as it is in Dubuque? I don't know. I don't know if you have a VEG in Dubuque, but I'm curious. It's coming soon. I'm curious. Is it the same? Is it different? What does that look like?
I mean, generally speaking, across the country, people do love their pets and spend quite a bit of money on them. And
thank God for pet insurance.
Thank God for pet insurance. And, I can say with quite a bit of confidence that we have VEGs in all different types of demographic locations across the United States. I mean, we have VEGs in Manhattan, we have VEGs in LA, I mean, pretty much every big MSA. But we also have VEGs in places like Madison, Wisconsin. We're about to open a VEG in Omaha, Nebraska. And we have found that the concept translates across all these different...
The pricing the same? I'm so curious.
The pricing for the most part is the same.
I'm guessing Manhattan, LA might be a little more expensive.
Maybe a little bit more, but the pricing is generally the same across the VEGs. I think it's not VEG specific, I will say that. Emergency vet care is expensive. That is
without question.
That is just the thing. It's not a VEG specific thing though. And I think a lot of people are nowadays especially are treating their pets like their kids, like they're very willing to pay for them. And so
don't come to my house and ask who's the favorite child, because it may as much as I love my kids and my wife, it may not be them. My
and I'm sure, is
the top dog in my house.
You would pay anything for them. So of course there's definitely communities that potentially cannot afford some of the care that we want to provide. A surgery can be very expensive, but our goal is that every community that needs a VEG is going to have one at some point in the future.
So what is the future of VEG? Is it 500 locations? Are we taking VEG internationally? What is next for VEG?
So we're about to open our first location in Canada in Q1 2026. Where? So we're opening in, I think it's public knowledge. Well, and it will be now. We're opening in...
Breaking news on the Real Smart podcast.
We're opening in Etobicoke, which is outside of Toronto.
Say that 10 times fast.
I know, and it's spelled even weirder than Etobicoke. I'll show it to you later on this paper. So we're opening in Etobicoke, which is very exciting. Myself and Josh and our team have spent the last 2 or 3 years really learning Canadian real estate, which is like its own ball game if you're not aware.
Wow.
And really learning Toronto. I mean, earlier I mentioned how we use data analytics, but a lot of what we do is that like human touch and feel of living in the market.
I have spent boots on the ground.
I have spent so much time in Toronto. Great city if you've never been.
All right, I've been. It's beautiful.
I've spent so much time like understanding and learning the city of Toronto and the greater GTA. And we're super excited for that. So I think that will just kind of kick off our growth outside of the United States. And I can't speak for any specific plans we have to go international. I will say there are none at the time, but I would imagine that is our goal at some point. But right now, what we're focused on is scaling and growing VEG within the US. And we really do think that there could be 300, it could be 500, it could be 700. Like, I don't know what that finite number is. It's a lot, which is good for me because I have a job, but it's a lot. And I think as we get more comfortable operating in markets that are non-traditional for us, I mean, our first 50 to 90 locations were your traditional big MSAs and suburbs of those big MSAs. So as we start to enter more of those tertiary markets and see that, a market that only has 50,000 households can sustain a VEG, that unlocks so much growth throughout the United States.
Tell me a bit more about the real estate side of things. I mean, you're a veterinary business, but you're also a real estate player in this world. It's not a secret that we've gone through some crazy times in the real estate world across the United States and abroad. How does the greater real estate market play a role in what you are doing for VEG day to day?
I mean, I think I'll answer it from this side first, that being a veterinary tenant is sometimes challenging in and of itself. Like we fall in this like medtail category that a lot.
Medtail? I've never heard
You've never heard? Oh yeah, it's medtail. It's medical retail.
I was talking about tail as in like a dog or something.
I did not coin it, to be clear. It is a thing. But we're a medtailer, and a lot of landlords and developers are not familiar with that concept. So a big chunk of our time is educating these people on who we are, what we do, how we operate, and how we bring a value to their center. You mentioned earlier that a lot of people tend to think of a veterinary user or a co-tenant as, oh my gosh, they're going to be loud, they're going to be smelly. And it really is not that case. So it's that education piece of it for, hey, this is why you should lease space to us. And this is why we can go directly next to the Whole Foods or directly next to the QSR, and it's a non-issue. I think in terms of the global real estate environment, it was definitely very challenging the past few years. I mean, we're seeing it now, a lot of new construction, but the past 3 to 5 years, there really wasn't a lot of new developments being delivered. So we, as I mentioned before, are very flexible. And you told that lovely story of Santa Monica and our decrepit building. And it looks great now. Our team did a great job, but it did not always look that way. So a few years ago, we were honestly taking any types of real estate that we can find. And I think we, even now, have a competitive advantage because we are very much willing to take on landlords and buildings and different types of conditions that a lot of other large companies will not do. And it might be to the detriment of our design and construction team sometimes, but if it's the best piece of real estate or the best piece of real estate we can find, speed to market. So, hey, let's do it. If the building's not going to fall down, we will probably entertain it.
That's a glowing endorsement for all your real estate out there. Yeah.
And
don't let it fall down.
Just don't let it fall down. And now, as we're starting to see a lot of new developments being delivered, that has gotten a little bit easier. And we're also starting to see some of those, big boxes that are turning over, like backfilling the Party Cities and the Joannes. We obviously can't backfill a Party City on our own. But working with some of our landlord partners on, hey, you're about to get X, Y, or Z box back. Are you willing to divide it?
This is a lot of work, and I know you well enough to know you're constantly working, you're constantly traveling. It's a lot. How do you balance it all? What do you do when you're not working?
Great question. Well, there's a few things that I love that I think really help reset and recharge me. I love to travel, both for VEG and personal. I love to work out, love to cook. I think in terms of travel, what's really special to me about this role is that for VEG, I've gotten to travel to almost every single state, almost every single major city, and most cities you've probably never heard of. And
what was that place in Toronto again?
Etobicoke.
Etobicoke, yeah.
If you're from Toronto, you will be very familiar with it.
Okay.
But to a lot of places that people in the U.S. don't typically get the opportunity to go to. And I'm very grateful for that. And every time I travel for work, I try to make sure that I do at least one small thing when I'm in that city or in that state that might be, special or specific to that state. The last time I went to St. Louis, we went in the Arch. A lot of people don't know you can go in the Arch.
I've been in the Arch. I lived in St. Louis for a year.
You did? Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
The Central West End. Shout out St. Louis. But yeah, it curves around and you can go up.
Yeah, you can go inside of it, which I don't think a lot of people know. And there's an underground to it too.
It's true.
So doing something like that when I'm traveling, I think helps reset a little bit and gives me a different perspective on where we're going. I also like to travel a lot personally. So when I'm not traveling for VEG, I always try to fit in some personal travel, whether that's somewhere within the US. Like everyone else, I like going to Europe. I'm not very picky about my travel. I just like to travel and I like to have new experiences. I love to work out. Everyone that knows me will know that's a thing that I'm going to say. And I think that it's something that really grounds me because one, it's a dedication. I mean, I go to the gym pretty much every day before I go to the office because I know I'm not going to go after. So it's having that dedication and that drive to do that, but also having that focus. I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb at the gym. I really try not to touch it. I don't take phone calls. Do not call me unless it's an absolute real estate emergency, so that when I get into the office, I'm clear for the day and I can be on my game because I've already kind of taken care of myself in the morning.
I love that.
And I also really love to cook, which has been a new development over the last few years. And it's something I look forward to when I leave the office, and getting to go home and getting to be creative and create something. And it's kind of a way that I decompress. I know a lot of people don't like to cook, but or maybe they don't like to cook after work. It's for me just like a decompression from the day. It's something that's completely different from my day-to-day. No one's gonna hire me as a chef, but it is nice to improve upon that skill and get to go home and do something kind of just for fun.
I love that. You're a role model and you are doing tremendous work. I'm curious, what are your recommendations for folks who want to get into this business? You have a unique place in the real estate pie, right? You're not a broker, you're not a developer, you're not an institutional lender. You kind of found this niche in, was it Medtail?
Medtail.
What would you recommend to folks who maybe, this resonates with them and they're interested in getting into it?
Well, it's funny you say that because people ask me a lot, oh, why did you want to be in commercial real estate? What did you want to do? And if you had asked me a decade ago, because that's about how long I've been in the industry, I didn't know that this was a job. Like, I had no idea this was an option. And a lot of it was hard work, but a lot of it was luck. Like, that just happened to be my client, and I happened to work with them. And I think I would give the advice of really look into the different options within the industry, because I really didn't know this was a thing. And even though I work for VEG and I'm a Medtailer, it's not specific to VEG. There's a me at Sweet Green, there's a me at Costco, there's a me at Equinox. Like,
there's only one Jenny Hanlon, let's be clear.
I mean, there's only one Jenny Hanlon, but there is someone hopefully similar doing what I do at all of these other, retailers or service providers. And I never really thought about that. So I'd say one, like, really understand what the opportunities are within the industry. I was in the brokerage world before VEG. I couldn't hack it in the brokerage world, but there are definitely people I know where I'm like, you would make an absolutely amazing broker. And they should run out and they should go do that. And I would really recommend starting early with kind of joining networking groups. I'll give a little shout out to the Women's Pipeline Group.
Pipeline Group, all right.
It's a women's only networking group. We have locations across, eventually the United States, but I think most of them are focused on the East Coast right now. So if you're in New York City and you want to join, email me.
I love that.
So we hold events, we hold networking events, we hold big, specifically during like the ICSCs of the world. So like a big event at Vegas, a big event in New York, some smaller events throughout the years. We have speakers. It's a really great way to get involved in the real estate world, especially as a woman. I always recommend looking for someone that can be a mentor. I didn't have a specific mentor when I first started in the industry, but working with some strong individuals that really helped guide what my opportunities were, I think made the world of difference. And I always say they don't necessarily have to be in real estate. Like, I'd say one of my mentors was David, who hired me and is our president. And he's not in the real estate world, but he was such an important person in my growth here because he pushed me to have the autonomy and really just said, hey, it's okay to make mistakes, but like, you just have to go out and do it. And just stay curious. Like, I think one of the best things about working in real estate is that it's such a dynamic and evolving industry and career. Like, I never do the same thing twice in a week. And I love that about, like, we have a process and we are doing the same thing over and over again. But generally speaking, I never do the same thing twice, and you get to iterate and you get to improve. And that's what makes it so much fun. And especially working for VEG, like working for a fun, young, energetic company that has a good culture that people love. It's a good story to tell. So it's been a really fun ride.
I love that. This has been fantastic. This has been a real treat for me. Obviously, I'm very fond of you, but I also just think you are a great role model, and you're up to something that's so unique in real estate and also so impactful in people's lives. It's very rare that I feel like in real estate, you buy a building and, you tenant it up, what have you, but like you actually get to see the fruits of your labor almost instantly, which is pretty cool. So this has been awesome for me. Thank you for welcoming me to your city. Thanks for being on the Real Smart podcast. And I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thanks. Appreciate it. The content of this podcast is for the general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you, the host, guest, or Alan Matkins. You should not act or rely on any information discussed without first consulting a qualified attorney regarding your specific situation. Any opinions expressed are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views of Alan Matkins or its clients.